Okay, so my name is Karen Hogan. I'm from the University of Pennsylvania, and I'm a co-founder and chief scientific officer of Biorealize. And what you're seeing in front of you is one of our tools called the Microbial Design Studio. The real mission of our company is to make it easier for more people to prototype for the bioeconomy. So when we think about the bioeconomy, naturally we go to ideas of using biology in medical applications, which is kind of a natural place to imagine biology being used. But the commercial sectors that biology is hitting right now are much bigger than that. So biofabrication is the future. It is the next industrial revolution, and it is happening right now. So we see this in self-healing materials or materials that are completely biodegradable. For example, you can grow packaging out of mushrooms instead of using styrofoam. That has some really, nice applications to it. Up here, you're seeing Adidas's BioSteel shoe and Stella McCartney's dress. You may ask yourself, what's so great about these two products? They're actually made from spider silk, and that spider silk was not harvested from actual spiders. It was grown from baker's yeast, the stuff we use to make bread and beer. So if you have a chance to go down to MoMA, I encourage you to do that. There's a lot of these kind of innovations on display right now. We can even use this in food and beverages. We know that we can use microbes and organisms in the way we produce food. That's very natural, but we can think about new ways of producing it. So for example, making milk protein out of organisms other than cows or goats, for example. And so a lot of this is happening at the level of microbial design. There's a lot of people involved in thinking about which organisms to use, how to use them, and then how to apply that knowledge in new ways so that we can see kind of this infiltration into the consumer product placement. And so we have researchers and engineers who sit at the bench. They spend a lot of time working out different combinations of organisms, different combinations of DNA, and then how to grow them. So there's a lot of effort spent here. Then product designers come in and create the consumer demand for these products. So it's rather boring to think about these recipes unless they're in a context of something you might be using. And so product designers play a key role in prototyping how to use this technology. Then when we finally hit on a good recipe, a good application, it's time for Anheuser-Busch to step in. So we need somebody who can brew this stuff in large quantities so that we can actually mass produce it for consumers. And so we've got researchers, engineers, we've got product designers, and we've got biochemical industrial engineers in this process. And while this is all very exciting, this really is the future. The innovation pipeline is broken right now. Right now, researchers sit in their labs. They work with pretty antiquated tools. I know, because I did this. So it's highly trained scientists with PhDs basically moving small volumes of liquid around from one tube to another. It's really tedious. The tools are expensive. You're siloed. It's hard to keep that work going, and so people make a lot of errors. If you want to take away that error, you can outsource your workflows to these large industrial robots, essentially, but these are very expensive. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're sitting in centralized facilities and academic institutions. They're actually not that reliable. You do fight with them, so they're not as easy to use as you would like. So I compare this to either having at your disposal a calculator to do really difficult computation using manual tools or a mainframe computer to do this automation. So there's obviously a chance to introduce a new tool to this audience that could really help the workflows. If you're a product designer, if you're Stella McCartney, if you're an Adidas, if you're a Puma, and you want to get into this space, you don't have the infrastructure or the know-how. So you need to gain access to those research labs, which is really difficult. Or you've got to go to community labs to do this work. So there's obviously a need for new tools in this space as well. The industrial partners like to work with startups. We heard that in the introduction. They are not the ones to take on this R&D. But one of the things that happens in that relationship is that the kind of programs and protocols that are captured by the scientists and the product designers aren't standardized. They're not in a language that industrial partners can use. So we've got to rework kind of that configuration for that relationship. And so myself and my two co-founders, who I'll speak about at the end, have thought quite a bit about this tooling problem and have thought, what if we were to bring a personal computer version of a biolab to all of these audiences? What if we were to distill that workflow down into a single machine that you can just hit start and it takes care of everything for you? That you can have multiple machines sitting in different locations talking to one another. That the way you capture the data can be handed off very easily to an industrial partner once you hit the right recipe. And so as a scientist, I never really thought about this. I was trained in this, kind of regimented apprenticeship model. So it was collaborating with a product designer and an industrial co-founder that led us to this discovery, and we call it the Microbial Design Studio. So how does this work? We're basically a platform play. So you go to our software, you design your experiment, or if you're a product designer, you search for recipes for applications you want to make. You work that all out on the computer, and then it gives you a list of supplies, consumables, that you need to run these workflows, and it ships them to you. These consumables are QR coded, so they're linked back to the experiments that you planned. They arrive at your door. You load them into the machine. You hit play. The machine takes care of growing these organisms for you and tracking their growth and other analytics in real time. You can run multiple experiments at once, so you really can increase the efficiency with which you churn through prototypes. You can connect multiple machines to one another, so you can divide and conquer, or you can test the reproducibility of your design by benchmarking it off another machine. Then you can take the outputs. If you're a scientist, you might be doing certain applications with it. If you're a product designer, different applications with it, but you're still working with the same raw material. We've been working with a lot of folks in all three sectors. We're an early startup. We're about 2 years old, but we've been working with researchers, prototypers, and industrial partners. This is just a smattering of folks that we have that'll be using our machines as we deploy them. PenVet is in Philadelphia. GenSpace is a community lab here in New York City and Brooklyn that will have a machine. And we're also working with folks like Puma and Samsung. You might ask yourself, what does Samsung care about biology? People are actually thinking about how to store data in microorganisms instead of electronics. You can store a lot more with a much smaller footprint that way. Procter & Gamble and DuPont are also industrial partners we have. Our lab automation market is $6 billion, but this is really targeted at just scientists. So as we increase that market to engage product designers and also to put these machines in industrial partnerships as well, we really broaden that market of who we can hit. We certainly have competition, mostly the status quo. People are used to doing things a certain way, so human labor and lab tools and industrial culturing are two of the biggest competitors we have, but we offer a lot of different advantages that those two don't. For example, we're an all-in-one platform. We're field ready, so this means that you can actually take this out into the field if you desire. If you want to deploy vaccines on the spot, for example, you'd be able to do that with this technology. And we have a dramatically lower price point. So we are talking about going from hundreds of thousands of dollars for these industrial robots down to a price point below $5,000. There is a movement afoot with DIY liquid handling robots as well. Opentrons is a company here in New York, but they are not networked. And so that inability to crosstalk and collaborate is a big stumbling point for a lot of people. How we make our money? We sell hardware, we sell consumables, and we have a data plan. So the hardware, as we all know, needs to be something to get everybody into the door. They typically don't tend to be the big money makers. Our consumables, however, are. They're proprietary plastics that are protected in our patent. And then we also have our software platform. This monthly subscription is for operating the system, using the interface, storing data. But if you want to monetize off of your discoveries, you can share those on an app-like store so that people can download your recipes. We're starting out small because we want to bring the network effect to life sciences. So we're building out clusters first as opposed to deploying a lot of hardware. So we're bringing those researchers, product designers, industrial partners together. That's happening now. We'll then build those clusters within the commercial sectors that are hungriest for it. And then once we figure this all out, we deploy to a much bigger market. I come from the biology department in arts and sciences. Orkan Telhan is faculty in the School of Design at the University of Pennsylvania, which is a unique combination, biology and design. He also hails from MIT with a background in product design and biological design. And then Mike Hogan, who's not related to me. It's just a good idea to have a Hogan on your team. He comes from Siemens with a lot of experience in lab automation and process control. So we're deeply knowledgeable within our field. We've done a lot in 2 years, from filing a patent. We're now in open prosecution in the US. We're moving into Europe. India and Japan as well. We participated in a business accelerator since we needed that help, and we have functional prototypes and machines that are going out for deployment. We've just closed an angel round, but we're right on the heels of turning around and scaling because we've had really good interest and commitment in our technology. So that's why I'm here today. We're ready to hire software engineers, we're ready to hire hardware engineers, and to grow our organization. So thank you very much. I'm Karen, and I welcome any questions.